Here we are.
Live.
Live and in person. Not quite live.
Not quite live.
Not
Live.
quite.
It's live for us.
Live for
It's
us.
live for
Yeah,
us.
we are in real life here. Not in the other universe. Today we got Liam Obrien.
Yep.
Liam Obrien from Oddity Productions in the studio with us. I'm super excited to have you here. We learned a lot from what you've done already just by like watching it and studying it. You're another local filmmaker, and as we enter our first production of a short film, we have I would like to say that we modeled a lot of our ideas and things we want to do after what you guys are doing at Oddity.
Good, man. It's not, you're doing the first thing right, which is finding people to lean on and learn from their experience, and that's exactly what we did, and it's what everybody has to do.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Your guys' production value is like through the roof. Your premiere was super impressive. We were at Portrait of the Universe, and you guys were doing some really hardcore things that were really cool. Like, can you tell the people that haven't watched Portrait of the Universe a little bit about the production and how you guys made all that?
Absolutely. So Portrait of a Universe is a story about an interstellar painter as he travels kind of through the rest of the end of his life in the cosmos with his AI co-pilot. And we were able to create the visuals using virtual production, which is a technology that takes massive LED walls and synchronizes them to cameras, kind of like an enhanced green screen, if you will. So
Right. That's how they make like Mandalorian and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a cutting edge technology being used by production studios like Disney to do Mandalorian. And it's really great because it gives your actors an immersive kind of experience where as a green screen, you have to put a lot of pretend into it. And we were only able to do it through RIT, through a independent study group. And, we got lucky in that case, and we put a lot of effort into doing some fundraising to create the set and bring in an actor from Boston who played the main character. And it was a really fun experience. And a part of our goal with the project was to try to inspire Erie as far as bringing some of that technology locally, because imagine what people could do locally, but also just around the country. If there's a place like Erie where it's relatively cost effective to do productions just based off of the local market, and if you've got technology that enables, higher production value, things like that here, I think it would be really impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there would be a lot more people jumping at the opportunity to make films with that kind of technology. And I feel like as far as films go in Erie, there's always been a film scene and people doing it, but it's been it's not like a mainstream endeavor.
Yeah, it's definitely more active in like Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, and I think eventually Erie can position itself to be a stronger ecosystem for filmmaking, especially because we have a lot of natural landscape, a lot of variety. We've got city, we've got farm areas, we've got rural areas, woods, lake, snow, summer, fall, all the seasons. Right. I mean, that's why the mayor of Kingston, I think, the Jeremy Renner show, came and did some shooting on the bay because they're in Pittsburgh, and that was the closest accessible bay that they had, the bayfront. So that's just one example of how Erie can differentiate itself. And
bring that unique aspect and the cost effectiveness all really lends itself to like big productions, because it's not cheap to go out and make a film.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, you can do it for next to nothing if you want to, but like to produce the production quality that we want to achieve and that you guys have achieved, it really is definitely expensive.
It's expensive, and you have to be really, I think, strategic with how you use the budget that you have, whether you have 2,000 or 200 million. Like, you've got to know how to use it in a good way.
And there's so many things that go in behind the scenes too. I mean, lights, picking out your scene, renting the scene like area or the set, and having that big production, the premiere and stuff down at the Playhouse. I'm gonna have to talk to you a little bit about that afterwards, about who we need to get in contact with, because we are kind of kicking around a couple different options right now, depending on how many people we sell pre-sale tickets for and stuff, and how many people are going to come see the film. But it was a beautiful venue for that, and I feel like there's not a lot of you don't see anybody else doing, at least I don't see anybody else having premieres or anything like the Playhouse. Usually it's strictly like theater and stage performances.
We kind of lucked out too because they had a screen set up from the SpongeBob musical that they did.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And they actually had those rafters, those big beams. They were there already, and they were like, "Oh, we'll take those down." And Danny, our business partner, was like, "No, leave those up there. It looks cool. It's got like a spaceship kind of vibe to it."
Right.
So there's always a little bit of luck involved in everything.
Absolutely. How did you get into filmmaking?
So, I mean, I really got into it through Danny and Simon. Danny's been a filmmaker since he was 10. Like, he's known he wanted to do that. And I think Simon has to some degree as well. He's a little more on the technical side of camera work, post-production, color science. But ultimately, I was in high school with Simon and Danny, and we did some, like, high school projects together.
Fun.
It was really fun. I mean, the first one we really did was a donut commercial for Fairview Cares, which is a fundraising event that they do. And I was trying to sell some donuts during the school time to, raise some money. But we started really freshman year. Danny was like, "Hey, I can do film production. You're more of a business type. Do you want to go in and try to make some money together?" And we gave it a shot for a little while, and we did our first narrative or documentary work was A Life in Paint, which was about a local artist, Brad Letheby, super awesome artist. He does like a realistic, like almost like, you kind of squint, it looks like a photo, and he doesn't like it when you say that because he wants it to be like a painting still, but he's an amazing artist. But we did that, and then I took a gap year. I was out of the country for a bit. Danny was still working on some projects, and then in 2020 we all came together and kind of realized, okay, now Liam had some more business experience and Danny had some more chops and Simon had some more chops, and we're like, yeah, we could do this thing. So we just started trying to get some clients, doing some spec work, some free work, some extremely cheap work.
Right.
But just getting our portfolio going was really the first step, and then, just got plugged into the local network, and it just kept kind of going from there.
It's awesome. We kind of, as far as our upcoming, we kind of fell into this, you know what I mean? It was just a gradual progression of things, you know what at least for me, I'm like a really obsessive person, and once I find like something that I can bite down on, I bite down really hard, and next thing I know, I have DSLR cameras and a green screen hidden over there, and a fancy mixer and all these other things, and it all started just from making the podcast and talking to people and being exposed to different things and new technology. And this is just like a really exciting stuff. We've made a couple music videos and a couple free videos and wedding videos and stuff like that. For me, it's been like all a learning experience, learning how to edit, learning how to produce, learning how to light, learning how to set things up.
Dude, I mean, someone could sit there and watch 10,000 hours of YouTube tutorials, but ultimately you got to do it to learn. And
sure.
I never set out to know how to operate a camera or an audio mixer or understand like key lighting and backlighting and stuff like that. I never really thought of doing it, but just by being around it, I've held the camera, I've adjusted the ISO, I've adjusted the focus or set up a lav mic on someone, and just kind of like learned by doing. Whereas a lot of people, I think, can get too caught up on the researching phase. You just got to get in there and do it. Like
at some point you have to go for it. For sure. You can watch a million YouTube videos or whatever, but it doesn't matter if you never get a camera in your hand.
Absolutely.
That's when our biggest thing is just having the guts to go out and do it. I think it's a huge asset.
I think a good way to start for anybody really is just think of, what can I do today? Like, what can I shoot and edit and do, even if it's on your phone?
Right.
Because the chop of just like thinking a vision through, thinking like, what do I need in place to make it look the way I want it to look, make it look good? How does it all come together? And then what's like the story there, or whatever it is you're trying to show?
Sure.
I mean, doing wedding music videos, all that stuff is super good to get those initial chops going,
I think that's the we've talked about it before. I think that's the biggest fear with like a creative endeavor like this is, what if it's not good? You know what I mean? Like if you're doing like a wedding, you want to get the good picture, the good video, but it's not like you're choreographing the whole thing. You can tell people where to go or like, you know, turn a little bit like that. But it's not like you wrote the script for the wedding, you know, you're not writing the vows for these people. It's like everything you put out there, it's like, this is our idea. God, I hope people don't fucking hate it. You know?
Yeah. Every artist, every type of art feels like that, definitely. But I can't remember where I heard this, but a really good expression is that any kind of creativity is like turning on an old faucet, and the first bit of water that comes out is brown and rusty and gross, but eventually it starts getting clearer and clearer, and then it's delicious, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just, you gotta expect the first few things to be tough, but that's just how it is. I mean, I guarantee Quentin Tarantino's first project was pretty bad, you know?
No doubt. And he didn't have half the technology to make things much simpler than they were back then, you know?
Absolutely.
And it's such a huge asset, and the barrier to entry is so much lower now. Not that, because people are making amazing shit on their iPhone, you know what I mean, every day.
You look at, like, Casey Neistat on YouTube, the dude, half of his footage is on an iPhone, and brands will pay him so much money to do that because it's less about the production value and more about the content, yeah.
Right. That's what we're really hoping is going to carry Paranormal in a lot of ways is our script writing. Dave did an amazing job. All of our cast is local, and they're all tremendous actors. And what we lack in overall production skill, we're hoping that we make up for in like quality storytelling and quality acting. And that's our goal, really, is to tell a good story, you know.
Give me the quick rundown. What's the story about?
It's called Paranormal with an @ symbol, which has been like almost a devastating blow in some ways because now everything has @Paranormal and all the social media wants to tag whoever has that thing.
Yeah, I see.
We had a funny thing with we our first one we posted it on Instagram, and this girl had the handle Paranormal, and she was like, you wrote a movie about me, you know, like, what is all this noise, you
That's
know?
funny.
Like,
yeah, it was hilarious. She was a good sport, though.
Yeah.
She was awesome. And so the abridged synopsis version is Paranormal is an online YouTube like star sensation paranormal investigator, hence the name Paranormal. And it's found out by her fans that she has been faking her paranormal investigations, and everybody's kind of, you know, distancing themselves from her. You know, she's facing the backlash and decides to step away from internet stardom.
She's getting canceled.
Absolutely. And she heads back to her hometown and rents an Airbnb to stay at to kind of step away from all of the, you know, internet drama. And things start occurring there that are unexplainable.
I'm into it. I like this concept. This is really good.
We're really excited, and we're really hoping to play up some of the interpersonal relationships between like her internet stardom and her history of faking or lying, and her trying to rekindle old relationships that she's been neglecting during her internet stardom that are all kind of questioning, you know, what's going on, Kara?
I think that one of the things that's one of the more fascinating things, and it's not new, it's just evolved and become, you know, more available to more people, is like that star, that avatar, you know, like behind the computer screen, like chasing this identity and this persona, and how doing that can lead to degradation of the relationships with the people in your actual life.
And a degradation of your own ethics and morals, because like you're a performer, you've got to live up to the hype, you've got to, you know, maybe do some things that aren't completely truthful or factual, and we're really kind of hoping to put all of those questions into people. A lot like your guys' film, A Portrait of the Universe, you know what I mean? There's a lot of questions of like, you know, I'm old, do I, like I think it's called like the Liberty Death Movement or something like that, where people are opting to self-terminate rather than live a life of suffering. And it kind of puts those kinds of questions into your head. Like, you know, should this old man live for life's sake, or is he, you know, truly living by opting into the freedom and the risk of like pursuing his art and pursuing his dream, you know?
Yeah, that's a beautiful takeaway. And I'm really glad that our movie was able to have a lot of different interpretation. I haven't heard anyone like that. That's a really cool one.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely what I thought about during it. It was good. And
It wasn't my interpretation.
what was your interpretation, Dave?
My interpretation was how we're going in the direction of people being able to make very deep and interpersonal relationships with the technology around them and not so much need the actual human connection. The more that they have like integrative and more knowledgeable or progressed artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that's definitely at play. Like, you think about the character Rodney was, he could have stayed with a bunch of people on Earth, but he chose to just be with his AI and just get out, and who knows for how long,
Yeah.
So definitely was part of it too.
Merriment, lots of new routes for companionship.
Oh yeah, I mean, even now there was this app, a Replica, where people were kind of sexting with the AI, and then they stopped the program, and people were upset. People were really upset about it. It's really interesting how the world is kind of a Black Mirror episode.
Right. That's kind of one of my personal goals is like for this to pass as a Black Mirror type episode.
It's definitely in line with that kind of theme.
That vibe. Yeah. That's one of my personal goals. And I didn't even realize it until I think Dave told me about it. He's like, yeah, we could kind of get these Black Mirror vibes.
Well, we had one of our friends watch the trailer and he was like, this gives me Black Mirror vibes in a good way. And I was like, okay.
That's really good. Yeah.
High compliment for sure, because I love that whole series.
Oh.
So, being that your theme was about artificial intelligence, is that something that you follow closely or are active in, researching? I guess we're all researchers right now, anybody who uses it, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a big interest of mine, just because I think it is one of those genies in a bottle.
Sure.
Like, I'm really in line with, it's not something that's going to take over the world next year, 10 years from now, but if you extrapolate into the future enough, someday, I don't know. 50 years ago, the internet didn't exist. And how would you explain a smartphone to someone 50 years ago? So 50 years from now, how are they going to explain AI to us? We might not have any way to comprehend what it's going to look like. So it's super fascinating. I'm not sure if I'm ready for a Neuralink implant.
No,
I don't think I'm ready for that yet, but it is it's crazy how this science fiction is almost becoming reality,
Right.
It's interesting. And we've had this conversation before a couple times about AI. And initially when everybody thought of robots taking over the earth or AI taking jobs or things getting automated, most people did not think that the arts were going to be the first thing to go. You know what I
people
mean?
thought, paintings will never be.
Yeah, people will always paint. People will always write. Who's gonna be creative?
I think it will become someday like, this was made by a real person. I'll pay you so much more for that.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you feel about in the filmmaking industry? And you just made this, or it was a little while back now, but you made this AI assisted film. God, it's just such a hot button issue in the art world, in the filmmaking world. I mean, the writers and the actors went on strike for almost a year because they don't want AI involved basically at all.
Yeah.
How's that feel? Like, is that like, how did you feel making that, like, coming out on the other side? I know it was more like the special effects, but how do you feel about AI after that project?
The project itself was somewhat designed to call attention to the growing AI concern. That wasn't like a huge point of the project, but it certainly was, involved in the theme. Yeah. And I think it's really an interesting subject matter of, should we not allow people to use AI for script writing? Because think about how many people are employed and rely on scripts, right? So I think for us, I really don't know if I dove into that too much in my head, but it's a really good point to bring up. And I think that maybe empowering writers to use it in a constructive way could be beneficial to the industry. But if it's eliminating jobs at a mass scale, then it's like, well, it's hard to control, but I think a lot of the time corporations are really shareholder focused, and it's going to be hard to keep them from doing it. So it's good that there are some unions in place to try to be a bit of a safeguard against stuff like that.
Yeah, we just had a meeting at work. Our workplace was encouraging us to use AI and to kind of explore how it can be efficient or be effective for us. Because I think, like, at least right now, obviously this is going to change as time passes and as things continue to get more progressed as far as AI, but right now it's really just a tool for the most part, at least for me and my job, and for all the things that I use it for here and personally. It's very much still a tool, and a tool is only good as the craftsman that's using it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a good starting point for a lot of things that I still need to change and proofread and edit and do whatever it is that I need to do to them before they're actually like a product that I would send anywhere or do anything with.
I think that's a good point. Like, it is really up to the user to utilize it in a way that's productive, so I think if a writer's using it to flush ideas out at a faster pace and be a more efficient writer, like, that could be useful. Mm-hmm. I think, but if you take a corporation that's building a bot to replace the writer, like, now we're losing a little bit of our humanity.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, I think there will always be a desire for, like, the humanness of art. You know what I mean? That's like one of the biggest things that I always really appreciate, especially some of my favorite photographs that I've taken are really absolute shit photographs. Like, if I look at them critically, I'm like, this is fucking garbage. You know what I mean? But I love it. They're super overexposed. You can barely tell everything. I have to edit the crap out of them to make them look like anything even remotely legible, but you know what, I really like the finished product that's full of errors and defects and blurry in certain spots and grainy and whatever else is going on in the photograph.
Well, plus, now that things are constantly changing, it's just such an accelerated rate right now. I mean, probably even less than 30, 40 years ago, you'd be in a dark room with those photographs. If you're editing a film, you're literally cutting the film, you're not doing. So it's like, takes away a lot of the tedious stuff that people are very appreciative of, that they don't have to do anymore. It's just a scary thing, like, we've seen it so many ways. Transportation gets more efficient. You get airplanes, you don't have to rely on the local farmers and butchers anymore, that kind of thing. We're just in the next step of it, and people don't know what to do with it because it's scary. People don't want to lose their livelihoods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to become part of the machine. Mm-hmm. Or a part machine. You know what I mean?
We are already cyborgs.
Oh,
We're just not
internal.
It's external.
Soon enough, though.
See, I think it'd be kind of cool to be a cyborg, honestly.
Yeah. We already are to some degree. Like, think about how much data your phone holds for you. I don't remember half of the things I put down in my calendar until the day of or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for a lot of those things that we can find on our phone, there is an analog alternative. What I mean, like an actual calendar. Or any of those other things, but we're becoming more and more compliant and more reliant on those phones and those devices to keep things organized for us because it's just so much easier. It's so much more efficient. I
mean, Apple just came out with the journaling app in like an integral Apple app, and I tried it for a few days, and I was like, I just paper and pen for at least for the journal aspect of it. It's for me,
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally understand that, and there's something very good about using your hands and your fingers for things other than a cell phone, whether that's drawing or writing or whatever it is that your creative art is doing. I mean, Christopher Nolan still makes all of his stuff on 80 millimeter film.
Mm-hmm. And so he rarely uses CGI.
Yeah, like never. Just because it's still that classic art to him, you know what I mean? He still needs that physicalness to it instead of a series of imaginary pixels that don't really exist. It's really cool too. That like resonates with me somehow too. Like, I never really collected vinyl records until I realized recently when I was, well, maybe not recently, but a couple of years ago or whatever, that like there are actual physical grooves on the record, and that's how they play. You know what I mean? It's not just a series of ones and zeros. It's actual physical waves that are ingrained onto this the vinyl record that you're actually experiencing. You know, it brings me a little bit closer, I think, to being in the room with that band that I'm listening to rather than playing it digitally.
For sure.
That was one of the coolest things. Go back to Portrait of a Universe again. I loved the live music at the premiere.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I can't take any credit for that. That was Danny's baby. I was actually really skeptical because and it's kind of the perfect explanation of the creative director and the producer. I was very much, when he floated the idea for the first time, I thought, wow, a live event is already so difficult. You want to add 7 musicians with everyone using microphones, and it can get really out of hand really quick. One person bumps something or something goes wrong and you've got an audio feedback and it kind of ruins the event a bit. But man, they pulled it together. They knocked it out of the park. And I think for us, we really love crafting experiences. You know, we had our first premiere for Alexander the Brain in the Erie Art Museum, and that was a lot of fun. It was our first event planning moment, and we were really able to dial in some stuff, and we learned from that and tried to make Portrait's event even more like elevated.
Right. The music for Alexander the Brain is also awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, like the harmonica and the guitar pieces, and it's really simple, but it very clearly carries the ambiance or the feelings or the emotions that are going on throughout the film, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that soundtrack too, and that was Danny writing and doing that music, and we actually got a crew from Altered State, a bunch of musicians there. We recorded it in Altered State, actually, nice. Probably in an altered state as well, and it was really fun.
Yeah,
it's meta.
Right. We got our buddy, friend of the show, Matt Boland. He's going to be doing all of our sound engineering for us.
Sweet.
Yeah, so we're really excited. He's a super talented musician, and we're really looking forward to what he creates. I also want to try and incorporate some local bands and local musicians where we can, where it fits in, like a soundtrack or part of a song or whatever in there. But that's such a big part too. Like when we were kicking around this idea, I really wanted to put an emphasis on our audio quality because my camera's audio quality is only so good. Even if I get a shotgun mic or a ride-along mic or anything like that, we're going to need a boom, we're going to need a mixer, we're going to need something small and portable and everything because if it sounds like shit and there's a buzzing or anything, nobody's going to want to watch it. They're going to be like, what are we doing here?
Audio is one of the trickiest parts to nail, I think, especially for early filmmakers. Even in Alexander the Brain, I could point out some weaker audio moments, and it is a tricky thing to crack for sure. But having a good audio engineer on site, or not engineer, but a technician, someone holding the boom, monitoring it and being really good. You can tell if an audio guy is good if they're really quiet, in general, if they're before a take, not talking to people and just really listening for cars or whatever it might be. That's really, important to do. And then of course in the post-production side of things, you want to really dial in the sound design and keep the levels good.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm kind of jealous that he's going to be doing. I'm going to help with this a little bit, whether he likes it or not, but I really want to do some Foley sounds and stuff.
Yeah, that's fun. We we did some Foley for Alexander the Brain. Yeah. Punching some chicken breasts.
I imagine you'd have to for some of that movie. It was great. And doing a fight scene is so ambitious to me too.
So yeah, we weren't not experts in that, and we recognize that from the get-go. I've never been in a fight. I hope I'm never actually in a real fight.
Right.
I just started learning jiu-jitsu, but just because I think it's fun.
Sure.
So
where are you training at?
I go to, I went to one class, so maybe I'm talking too early, but I went to one class at Shoshin on Green Garden and 12th Street. Really cool. Yeah, really cool looking school. I'm one class in, but I'm interested in going back for sure.
That one's an official Gracie school too.
Yeah. So they have a Gracie certification. He was trying to explain it to me. I didn't remember it well, but they're a legit school for sure. And there's a lot of good schools. We worked at 3 Elements. They're a fight, mixed martial arts type of school. And we had 2 of their long-term instructors, Kieran and Eli. They're 10 plus years doing MMA. And we met them through friends and we were like, look, we don't know anything about fighting, you guys clearly do. You've probably watched so many fight videos and you know how to do it yourselves. Can you choreograph a fight scene for us? And they helped us do it, and they helped us train our actors for months, like 5 months.
Yeah.
We did like weekly training.
That's so cool.
And I think that was another way that we really utilized the resources we had, was that we were like, if the fight is weak, like,
Yeah.
you know, you lose it then.
Especially in something big like that. Like, that's a focal point.
Big
That's
moment,
the whole,
yeah.
That's
Climax.
Alexander's whole like thing is fighting, you know what I mean, and finding freedom. Were you guys inspired by Fight Club at all?
Oh yeah,
I was
big
getting
time.
major Fight Club vibes for sure.
Definitely like Fight Club, that Sherlock, you know, the Sherlock with Robert Downey junior We watched that scene over and over. If you notice, the crowd is very much like similar to that scene in the movie.
That's an underrated movie too.
Oh yeah, big time. He killed that role.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I was always a Sherlock Holmes fan, but that movie did not get the respect it deserved, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was really good. But yeah, fantastic. And the music was good. We don't have any fight scenes. We very carefully designed this movie to make sure that it was something that we were completely feasible with doing on like a fraction small budget out of my pocket if I had to, you know what I mean?
I watched, this is an old movie, but I watched The Blair Witch Project a few times. Not that the plot is anything like that, but I'm like, we're going to make something that doesn't need to do too much and hopefully still be successful.
Good, yeah.
That's wise too, because a lot of people will do a really ambitious first project, and that is usually, you know, really not feasible. It's really hard to do big scale projects. And like I mentioned earlier, like Alexander the Brain was not our first project. You know, we had a lot of other projects that will never be seen because they were our first ones.
Right.
So yeah, it is really smart to try to work within your means and realize, like, how can I really just utilize what I have?
Right. Yeah, we wanted to keep the cast small. We wanted to keep it feasible. Not a lot of special effects or anything crazy like that. Really carried by the story and the dialogue and our actors and actresses. And I think that we definitely accomplished that with the plan that we have right now. The pre-production is like basically all done at this point. You know
Cool.
what I mean? The script is fully edited. We have our scene lists and how we want to shoot everything all figured out. We want to do some rehearsals, and we're going to shoot mid-May. We're going to start shooting, hopefully do the whole thing in like 2 weekends. It's going to be about a half hour.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
2 weekends?
2 weekends, 4 days total.
Yeah, that's our plan. We're going to rent an Airbnb for 2 weekends and try to get everything done. There's a couple scenes that we'll shoot here around Erie in different locations, but like the primary set is going to be somewhere in the middle of nowhere, country town of her returning home, you know what I mean?
Cool. I would say too, Previs is really a good tool to do, just like, even if it's on your phone in your own home, just to like kind of block some stuff off. That's something that we've done for commercial projects and for Alexander. Didn't do it for portrait because I think we had a good plan in place. It was on a set too. It was on like a sound stage, so it's not like we really had a whole lot to work with there. But it's a good way to think through it in more of a, you know, an actual video format.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have to check that out. Previs is like a app. Yeah.
No, just like pre-visualization.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
literally you just like act it out or try to kind of get the framing in mind, like even in here or wherever.
Yeah.
You know.
Like do some storyboarding.
It's basically storyboarding with your phone camera, if you want to say it like that.
Yeah. When we were kind of going through, me and Dave, like fine-tuning the script and going through each scene and how we want to shoot it, we were already starting that. And we plan on doing as much of that as possible once we start rehearsals with our actors, which we've never made a short film before. We've never worked with actors or rehearsals or anything. And the comments that I'm getting from other people is that there's not really a lot of rehearsal that goes into it a lot of times. We plan on rehearsing quite a bit, like 2 months before shooting, once a week, getting people here and having everything kind of figured out and nailed down as much as we can. Just because this is our first film, we have 2 weekends that we're budgeted to shoot this, so we just really want to make sure everybody's on top of it. We're good to go.
That's perfect. I think like if preparation is holding people back from taking action, that's the only time it's bad. I think any other time, like, you can't be too prepared. You know, if your actors are like, having actors that memorize their lines, that alone is such an advantage in a small, like, indie short film.
Sure.
Because you don't want to waste time with people like, oh, well, let me reread the script real quick. It's like, no, you should know that line. Yeah. It's your line. So that's huge. And especially if your crew has an idea of, like, the locations, the schedule, all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, the more thorough you can be in pre-production, the smoother your production's going to be. And I would also advise you to always add more time than you think you need.
Yeah.
Because it always gets used up.
I imagine. I believe that for sure. And that's definitely a concern. Like, when we were picking our actors and actresses, they're all experienced, all people that we have relationships, all people that we know are going to show up and be reliable and do what they say they're going to do, because that was at least a serious concern of mine, is like getting some people who want to show up. They're like, oh yeah, I want to be an actor, I want to be in a fucking movie, I can do this, blah blah blah. I'll show up the day of and not prepare or do anything at all. And that was absolutely something that we wanted to avoid. And I think that through the rehearsals and stuff like that, we'll be able to keep tabs on everybody will be self-motivating and like motivate each other, and we'll be ready to shoot when it comes time to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like you've definitely thought through some of the pitfalls of early stage production and like have already come up with a way to mitigate that risk. So that's really good.
Yeah, it's all just been a work in progress and trying to figure things out.
We think about everything.
That's good.
Everything at once.
Classic overthinkers, you know.
But yeah, we're super excited, man. And you also have a podcast out there. You're doing this too.
Yeah, I do this too, and I bet you can agree that when you start podcasting, you start becoming way more thoughtful about your words, about your pauses, and about your like feedbacks and ums and all that kind of stuff.
Big time.
It's really awesome. I think everyone should do some kind of podcasting, even if it's like on your phone with a couple friends for like 3 episodes that you never publish.
Sure.
It's such a good way to listen to yourself and learn about how you interact with others. But I do a podcast. It's called Radius Coffee Talk. It's for Radius Cowork, Erie's best and only co-working space.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sean's a good friend. He's been on the show too.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told him I was coming on. He's like, oh, yeah. Tell him I said hey.
Good. That's great. Sean's fantastic.
He's super cool.
So you listen back to all your shows, yeah?
I edit all of them. I go through and edit. Like, I'll try to take out, you know, if there are any major ums or pauses or anything like that, I'll try to kind of clean it up a little bit. But I do try to keep it really authentic. And I do listen to every episode, probably twice before I post it, just because.
Making me feel bad now.
I mean, it's just the way I like, and my episodes are really short. Like, I try to keep
minutes.
them.
You have to
10 to 30.
And chop it down a little bit, I'm sure.
Well, it depends. If there's a real, especially if I do any kind of run-on talking, which does happen from time to time, I might trim that out because I do want to keep the focus on my guest.
Right.
But you know, it happens.
Yeah, it's all part of the process. It's all part of learning. Ours isn't. From listening to yours and listening to ours, there are definitely some differences because obviously we have an hour and we're a little bit more loose with everything. We don't really particularly edit a whole lot unless there's something we absolutely have to. But that's our vibe, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That we're producing 2 different kinds of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mine's a lot more professional, I'd say, in the sense that it's for a business. Like, you know, there are certain things that I wouldn't want to necessarily just bring up in it because it's not constructive to the goal of the show, which the goal of the show is really to introduce current members to other members in Radius to help them, you know, foster conversations in the space. But then also if someone else is like thinking about joining the community and thinks, oh, it's not for me. Those people are so, you know, much more professional or whatever the case may be. They can listen to a few people and realize, oh, there's everybody there from business owners, CEO type people to photographers and freelancers and people who are figuring it out, you know, students, like literally there's everyone and everybody should, you know, be able to see themselves there, I think.
Yeah, it's a really cool space, and there is a very diverse number of people that are working there, which I already had an idea, but your podcast has definitely shined light on a lot of people that I was unaware of, or you know what I mean? I just didn't know that that there were so many different types of people doing so many different types of things at Radius, which is fantastic.
This is just a side thought that I had. while I was doing research for this show, you have to be the most efficient person. I read back on, your 2022 40 under 40, very late congratulations
Yeah, exactly.
on that.
Thank you. No,
But the more I'm reading, I was like, where does Liam find time to sleep?
You'd be surprised. I sleep like 8 hours a day. I used to sleep a bit less, but yeah, dude, I kind of became obsessed with efficiency, but more importantly, effectivity, like being effective more than being efficient. And I really got into that through Tim Ferriss, which is a world-class entrepreneur, investor, author. His claim to fame was the 4-hour work week, which is, in the title, like it's all about efficiency or being effective, I should say. But I think that a lot of it just comes down to doing the right things, right? So,
Sure. Not taking shortcuts.
Doing the right things. Or if you see a shortcut that is valuable, do try to capitalize on it, as long as it's not at the expense of your integrity or your work,
Absolutely.
But yeah, I do like to keep my plate full if I can.
Yeah. I get bored.
Yeah, me too. My goal right now is to start doing like some kind of martial art, like jiu-jitsu, which I'm really interested in. Do some more like physical activity, like exercising, like yoga, stuff like that. And I really want to have some kind of like built-in practice to continue education. So whether it's an online course or a very, particular nonfiction book or something like that. I'm not perfect yet. I'm still working on that schedule, but I'm always kind of in the back of my head, like, how can I be more efficient and like more effective? So thank you for noticing. I do appreciate that. I'm trying to do a good job.
You definitely do a better job than I do.
Well, everybody's on the way,
Exactly.
I've definitely binged a lot of TV shows and have spent a lot of time doing stuff where I was like, man, I shouldn't have done that. But then I think back and I'm like, I needed to do that. Like I had to go through that period of time where I wasn't being like my optimal self in order to get to my optimal self. You know what I mean?
I think it's also so important to more people are like this nowadays. You can't just always be a worker bee.
No,
you have
life
to,
balance.
You have to give yourself a break.
Mm-hmm. That's something that I think Sean at Radius has done a really good job like pointing out to me. Was because for a while when I was in school, I had a lot of commitments and priorities, and he was like, dude, don't burn yourself out. Like you gotta find time to recharge. So I really do try to keep my laptop at Radius and work only during the week and try to take the weekends to really focus on stuff that I just really enjoy doing, stuff that's healthy, all that kind of good stuff.
Right.
So
I had like a personal battle, I don't know, a couple of months ago about not utilizing my time properly and realizing that sometimes if I don't have anything to do, it's okay not to have anything to do, and not being obsessed with productivity or saying I should do this or I should do that when I'm bored and I don't have anything to do, that's also okay.
Yeah, there's a really good book I'm almost done with called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. And it really I think it goes into that point, which is like you need to have downtime. You need to have unstructured time, because that's when people's genius really comes out. That's when your juice really gets flowing, I think, is by having time. So I think in contrast to where I was a few years ago, now I try not to be so busy. I definitely do take a good bit of time to just relax and do my own thing for a bit. And it's I think it makes me work better than on the days that I do push myself,
It always seems to come in waves for me, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, same.
I'll have certain months where, 3-4 nights a week after my normal job, I'll be doing everything at once stuff, or and then I'll also have times where I'll feel like I have all the time in the world.
Yeah, you know who really ruined it for me? And it's not his fault. It's not his fault. He doesn't care. Hopefully he sees this. He probably won't. You know who ruined it for me? David Goggins.
I was just thinking about David Goggins. David Goggins, no one should try to be like him. He's not from Earth.
He's not from Earth. No. But I like when my brain gets going, like fixation, I'm like, I need to be the absolute best, and then when I got introduced to Goggins, I was like, I'm a total bitch.
Me too, man. Everyone's a bitch next to David Goggins.
Yeah.
But I think too, like, even if it's not a lot, but doing whatever it is that you're trying to do, even just a little bit of consistency, that is the biggest key. Like for me, maybe a year ago, I was not going to the gym at all. And every day I was like, I really need to do that. I really need to do that. So I started doing literally 5 minutes of treadmill running a day or every other day. But that 5 minutes eventually turned into 10, eventually turned into 30, eventually turned into, I'll just do a little more of this or that. And then it becomes a habit. And I think extremely low commitments to start building that habit or that thing that you're trying to do is like, that's the key. I think just start with something that's laughably small.
Yeah, it's huge. And, going to the gym, I think it is important in general just for, like, my overall well-being and functioning. Like, my anxiety, I know 9 times out of 10, if I can go to the gym when I'm feeling anxious or anything like that, or stop there afterwards, like, boom, I'm better. I'm not obsessing over not being productive anymore,
Yeah, and it definitely comes down to that stillness. Like when you're at a place like the gym, you're just doing one thing. If you're listening to music, you're probably not texting or thinking about work. And that space that you create internally, like that lets you cool down. And then you can attack whatever you're doing next, like way more efficiently, I think.
Absolutely. And I just joined the rock climbing gym, and that's been super, super fun. Shout out to Ascend. If anybody else is thinking about it, it is kick-ass. Definitely come climb some rock walls with me.
I haven't gone only because my wrist has been giving me some issues, which is a bummer. But I do love rock climbing. I want to get in there sometime soon.
I've been into the BJJ realm a couple times, too. I've been to 3 Elements. There's this one out in Harbor Creek that I've been to a couple times. And I think all of those ways to connect to our body are incredibly important to our self-awareness. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If I'm projecting myself 5 million different places or on problems that only exist in ones and zeros or on pixels on screens, then I'm just not really in touch or aware with myself and where I'm at and what's going on that's actually relevant or important. Not that like work isn't important and stuff. Everybody has to do it. It's all good, and a lot of us are incredibly happy with what we're doing, and it's productive and whatnot. But like being physically aware of myself and my being is generally good for my awareness on other things.
Absolutely. Like all these things do kind of intersect in some way or another. So I think too, like for me, I just think like, man, I really want to look back at the end of my life and think I did the very best I could. Mm-hmm. And in some ways I haven't done that. Like there are some areas of my life where I definitely could have done things better, been more diligent, but that's everybody, right?
Yeah, sure.
Even Elon Musk is probably like, shit, I could have had this company going way sooner, way faster.
If he doesn't have regrets, I'd be very surprised about a lot of things.
Me too. So I think, ultimately it's just like building that space for ourselves, like finding ways to connect with our physical body and like kind of create that stillness and all of that. It's important.
But I find that like, when you listen to people that are near the end, it's very cliche, but it's true. You don't have people that are really, for the most part, like upset about what they tried and failed at. It's the stuff that they wanted to do but never even gave themselves a chance.
It's so true. Or like time that they didn't spend with certain people or doing certain things. Like they're never like, man, I wish I was richer. That's never the thought, right?
Or I should have worked more than 50 hours a week at my job.
Yeah,
right.
Seriously.
It's crazy. And I think that like culturally we're going through a very big shift from that right now because like my parents' generation and stuff like that, like it was very important work. And when I was working in the mental health field, I would have people come in that would have like these complete identities that were built around working. You know what I mean? I'm going to be better. I'm going to not be depressed or whatever. I just need to get back to work. I need to busy myself and occupy myself 50, 60 hours a week because I can't stand to be alone with myself or not occupied or have time to face my demons or my problems. And I feel like our generation particularly and the younger generations are really moving away from that snuffing out of all of my problems and all of my issues through distractions like work.
I think things are getting snuffed out by other
social
media.
It's not work anymore. There's
turning into
things
other
to
stuff.
snuff it out.
But it's definitely, there is a shift for sure going on, and the work-life balance thing is important. You know, I think working from home is really useful in a lot of fields for a lot of people. Like, I know it's important for me to have a certain level of flexibility in my day-to-day. And so, you know, I think it can be used really well.
Absolutely. It can also use very poorly.
Oh yeah. Unstructured can be so detrimental. I mean, even for me, like, I'm so glad there was a time where I had part-time job, Oddity, freelance work, and school.
Yeah.
And a couple other things like having that level of responsibility at once really just made me do my shit, you know?
Yeah.
Which was important.
That was, there's a few different phases, and one of my mantras while I was in school and working full-time at a rehab was don't think, just do. Because every time I would have something coming up, whether it was a book report, whether it was something around the house, whether it was going to work or whatever, the worst period of time was always the
anticipation,
the time leading up to actually doing the thing. So if I just do the fucking thing, then things aren't so bad.
It's so true. Like, we create such a crazy reality in our heads about stuff, especially stuff that we're dreading, you know, public speaking or whatever it might be, which just don't think about it. Just go do it.
Just do it.
Done. Yeah.
And that was my mantra for a few years. This year, it's given enough time and energy, the probability of something happening becomes absolute.
Nice. That is some like metaphysical universe, everything at once type of.
Everything at once, baby. Yeah. I can't take credit. That's like a synopsis, but I heard somebody say that somewhere. I wish I could remember. Maybe I'll search it on Google after this and figure out who actually put those words together.
That's a good saying, though.
I had to find mine. I couldn't remember it off the top of my head, but mine is, this is Franz Kafka, by the way. Don't bend, don't water it down, don't try to make it logical. Don't edit your own soul according to the fashion. Rather, follow your most intense obsessions mercilessly.
Ooh, that's good.
That's a good one,
I
too.
didn't write it. Franz Kafka, wonderful German writer. Yeah.
Nice.
Do you have any mantras or any resolutions for this new year?
That's a great question. I don't have anything predetermined.
You're going to the gym and stuff?
But I'm going to the gym and stuff, and that is already a good step in the direction. I think if I had to come up with one kind of objective for this year, it's really going to be no excuses. If I want something,
David Goggins.
It's happening. Yeah, David Goggins.
Stay hard, motherfucker.
Stay hard.
Taking
or like
souls.
Jocko Willink. Have you seen that guy?
Definitely.
So cool. Yeah, I think excuses, and it does have a really bad connotation to it, and to some degree it should, but also, you know, we make excuses a lot. I think for everything. And everyone will. Even David Goggins might make an excuse from time to time, but his excuses are a lot more hardcore, let's be honest.
Yeah, his foot is shattered into 1,000 pieces.
He has a hole in his heart.
Yeah, really. He's like, I just got shot 12 times, but you know what?
Yeah,
I'm still going to hit the gym.
out of a helicopter into a burning fire with 50 pounds of gear on my back and run an ultra marathon. It's good.
I saw a video his wife posted that was him at like 5 a.m. She was like, we got home from the gym and David decided to go on a 100-mile run. Yeah. I was like, what?
He is insane.
You know what's crazy, though, and this is like another jutting off in another direction?
Yeah.
He constantly has people that are just attacking him on social media.
Yeah, right.
No,
it's
seriously,
true.
though,
It's
like,
true.
it's just so many haters out there. Like, how can you hate on this dude?
Well,
like,
he's definitely like mentally unwell. I think it's not a good.
There's a little extremism there.
Yeah.
But you know what? Maybe his
it
mental.
works for him though.
Well, I'm thinking because he came from a really bad place, and maybe this extreme approach to life is his like saving grace from the bad place he was. But I do agree, it's not a sustainable way for most. I think for everyone except for him.
Yeah, he might be the only
anyone
one.
trying that routine is not going to enjoy themselves. But I think there's definitely good and bad things to learn from it. And like kind of for me, like no excuses means I'm just like chasing the thing I'm after. So if I want to be healthier, I'm going to do it. If I want to, you know, do more work in film, or if I want to make more money or whatever the case might be, like I'm going to find a way to do it. I'm not going to say, oh, I can't do it because of X. No.
Hell yeah.
So that's how I'm trying to be.
It's a good goal.
that is a good goal. And I think it just depends on what you want out of life, like a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah.
Reaching that next step is a very good goal to have. I think people like him, it's like the goal is I'm going to be the best at what I do, better than anyone else. And it reminds me of athletes. Like, I've watched other NFL athletes talk about Tom Brady. They say the same thing. They're like, this man is a psychopath.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why he won 7 Super Bowls, because if you're at the gym at 5 a.m. and you think you're getting a jump on everybody, guess what? He's been there since 3:30. He slept an hour, you know?
That's crazy. I need sleep, though. I'll tell you what, recently I've realized that if I don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, my performance is significantly impacted.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I don't know if I notice much of a difference directly afterwards, but if I go on a string of like 6-hour days or 6-hour nights, by the weekend or by whenever I can actually get some sleep, I am fucking cooked.
Yeah. I've been trying to keep a good, like, nighttime, like, wind down routine and then a morning routine. Like, I love the morning routines and stuff, but I mean, honestly, the last week has been brutal. I haven't done anything that I wanted to do. But the other thing, too, is like being okay with that. Because I used to beat myself up about not doing those things that I wanted to do. But now it's like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'll do it later. I guess that's an excuse, but maybe not.
As long as you're serious about it, I don't think it's an excuse.
Yeah.
And you actually have that motivation and do get it done eventually, you know?
For sure.
And I don't know. There's lots of... Sleep is an interesting thing to me because I also like to abstain from sleep for periods of time. You know what I mean? And get real... Like, my brain starts operating different. You can tell after a certain period of time. Like, I think a couple years ago, I went almost, like, 2 days without sleeping. Ooh. We were camping over 4th of July out at Cook's Forest, and I was just like, I'm not going to sleep. I'm going to sit by the fire, and I'm not going to sleep. And by those 4th days, like, things... They're... I guess what I'm trying to get at, I'm sorry, this is a really roundabout way to get to it, but Huberman and Goggins actually talked about this in the most recent podcast, is finding those things that are uncomfortable and getting through them really strengthens and builds your tolerance towards other things that are uncomfortable and makes them a lot easier. You know, it kind of turns the volume down. I always describe it that way after I do a polar plunge or something like that. Mm-hmm. I feel like King Kong for the next 3 days, and the volume on all of my problems is turned down to like a 2 or 3 instead of a 7 or 8 where it was.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of Stoicism, which is really, I mean, at the core of it, I think for me personally, it's been a philosophy of don't worry about what you can't control and just focus on what you can. But in the tenets of the philosophy, they talk about structured, like, suffering, like plan on sleeping on the floor or not sleeping or not eating or eating foods that you're not generally trying to eat, right? And it kind of teaches you to have that resilience and to, you know, and if you do that thing and all the while think it's like, is this the condition that I'm so afraid of? It kind of teaches you, like, I can get through that.
Right. And
it makes harder things, like you said, a little more easy, makes that volume dial turn down.
I'm a big fan of Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius, but I'm incredibly disappointed with how it's being portrayed lately on social media and how all these alpha sigma males are fucking super toxic and talk about Stoicism, like Andrew Tate and all these people that are just really fucking up a philosophy or an ideal that I think a lot of people could really benefit from in today's society.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. And to be fair, it is a complex philosophy, I think. Like, there's a lot of ways to look at it and interpret it. And that's why I try to, when I talk about it, I kind of try to relate it to my interpretation. But, like, for me, you know, a practical example of how I try to incorporate it is if I'm getting frustrated with someone, whether it's work or like family or someone I love or whatever, I try to really not let that frustration manifest in the way I talk to them, because that only makes it worse, right? So 100%. I really try to always, especially in like heated moments, I really try to keep a neutral, you know, tone and not use words or say things that really make the situation unproductive, you know? That saved my butt a lot. Like,
absolutely.
Seriously.
I wish I was better at that personally.
It's hard.
It's the respond, not react.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
At its core.
And
I'm not great at it either.
And it's cultivated with that stillness, like with creating the space for your brain to think. That's why people that say that like meditating can help, or like even like going to the gym, like when you kind of get that quiet brain going, being used to jumping into that quiet brain state, I think can make it a little easier to get into.
Absolutely.
But it starts with just by thinking about it, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's disappointing to see it misconstrued. And this has been a super awesome podcast, Liam. Thanks for coming to hang out with us today. And we'll catch you later. Thanks to all our sponsors. Anything you want to shout out real quick?
We are working on a big project, so keep an eye out. And
That's right.
I think it's going to be exciting. But thank you guys for inviting me. This was really fun. And
sure.
I love talking about all of those things we talked about. So thank you.
Hell yeah, good shit, man. Be easy. Peace out, everybody. We love you.